Oh, goodness. Hello, everyone. This is Cassandra Williamson. How are you today? Oh, my gosh, I am tired. That's an understatement. Remind me never to take a long trip like that by myself in such a big rush ever again. That trip down to Florida flat wore me out. Oh, my gosh. Did it ever? Um, I did get to spend about an hour or so with Bobby, my friend down there in the Lake City, VA, in the hospice care unit at Lake City, VA. I'm not sure if Bobby knew I was there or not. Yeah, it was kind of concerning. Um, just held her hand and just let her know I was there. That's about it, essentially. Tired. There we are. We're back. How do you like that? We made it back. I have to say, I answered the phone, took it to mom. It was one of mom's friends from a long time ago calling to check on her. And I'm back on Mud Lick Road. I hope we got the right microphone on here. Hold on a second. Let me check the microphone I've got. Default microphone, blue snowball. Does anybody know if that looks like a blue snowball? Well, it says blue on the front. It's got a red dot on it. This is a really good microphone, though. I mean, it's designed real well. I've had it for, I don't know, quite a few years, I guess. So, works well. I've got a black one also, and it's also a blue snowball. I don't know well, anyway. Why don't they color them blue? It'd be like a blue snowball. Anyway, so here we are back in Kentucky, and I have to tell you, I am worn out. I'm worried about Bobby, my friend down in Florida. I don't know what the status will be. She did not really. Well, she smiled, tried to mumble a few things, but completely incoherent. Didn't understand a word she was saying. She had just turned, I think it was 80 the day before, and so wish her happy birthday and all of that. And so it's really, really concerning. So she's been a strong, logical, reasonable person for a long time, and she's been in this community. Somebody like me, she will deny that left and right because she doesn't hate. She hates labels. She hates the labels, and I get that. I understand it. I get it. I understand those things too, but she spent a lot of time just having a lot of names and labels removed from her records and everything, just so that she could live as herself, without other people prejudging based on information they read that she didn't think was accurate anyway. So, but she had been completely living like I am, 20, 30 years, a long time, 30 years. So anyway, she was a Vietnam War vet, served in Vietnam. I'm acknowledging her contribution to our nation. She jumped 125 times out of perfectly good airplanes. But I never had the opportunity to do that. I would have if I'd had the opportunity to do it. I wouldn't mind doing that. I just never had that opportunity. It never arose for me because I spend a lot of time under the water, and it's hard to go jumping out of airplanes under the water. And also, I didn't do it in the Corps either. So, yeah, there we go. It's just stuck with where we are. So, everyone out there, I do appreciate you and everything. Last week, hopefully last Sunday, a week ago, the Washington Post put this story out. If you haven't read that story yet, you can check it out on the Washington Post. It is behind a paywall. It doesn't cost very much to get it, but it is behind a paywall. They have other good stories, just so you know, and they're more center-leaning than Fox News by any chance, any stretch of the imagination. Fox opinion piece should, in my opinion, Fox News ought to be, the Federal Election Commission ought to be overseeing their actions because they are They are definitely an arm of Trump administration, without a doubt. Now, I know they say the same thing about some of the news media sources over on the left, and there are some more left-leaning ones over there, like MSNBC. Yes, they're much more left-leaning than ABC, NBC, CBS, and CNN. CNN's more in the middle, kind of, and BBC somewhere in the middle, kind of. But Fox News and Fox and Friends Weekend and all that kind of stuff, and the Big Weekend Show and all that, those are all really far right leaning organizations, news and opinion pieces. And so I think if you're that far over on the left or the right, you ought to be reporting to the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, because what you're doing is supporting your particular candidate, right? Yes, you are. You're defending them and their actions, and you're backing them up, and you're being their mouthpiece, and that you operate at their beck and call. And obviously, I'm going to tell you this straight up. We come by this kind of stuff honestly in this country from the very founding of the country, actually before the Constitution was even written. There were people who were controlling the media back then, the print media, obviously, given that that's all that there was. So, Hamilton controlled his bunch and his particular group on that side of the fence. The Federalists, they had their newspapers that they controlled and their writers and their contributors, and so did the agrarians over on Thomas Jefferson's side and the states people. And they all controlled their own papers, and they lambasted and attacked each other left and right. And Washington called them out numerous times over it, saying, all you're doing is going to divide the country even further, and we don't want that. Well, you can't stop that. That's human nature. Washington really wanted there to be more of a center, nonpartisan way of running the country, but that is not going to happen. You put two people together in the same room, they're going to disagree on something, and they're going to persuade some of their friends to disagree and agree with them on their sides. And it's just the way it works. It's never worked any differently. Not ever, for any reason whatsoever. So why would we think it'd be different today, right? Because we have all kinds of different ways of communicating to each other, print and broadcast and social media and all these kind of things. Oh my gosh, we just have more tools to use today. So might as well go ahead and play the game and use them, right? And make sure that they get properly vetted by the Federal Election Commission and that, they're following the rules. Right now, they're not. But, Washington knew that too. He couldn't do anything about it. So anyway, how have you been? I rambled on a lot of live broadcast on the way up here and on the way down there, because that kind of kept me awake. That's something I discovered on the road to Florida and back. It was an absolute tiring, difficult thing to do to try to stay awake. I can't tell you how many times I would quickly snap myself into reality again and realize I just caught the white line or the dashed white line. And I'm going, oh my God. So I'd stop and get me something to drink. I had 5-hour energy drinks with me. I bought a whole 6-pack of them. Those didn't work. Those did not work. They didn't keep me awake at all. On the way back up here, after I left my daughters, I had breakfast with my daughters down in Tuscaloosa, and 2 of my grandsons down there at Metro Diner in downtown Tuscaloosa at the, what was that, Midfield? No, not Midfield. Good Lord. Midtown Plaza. Metro Diner in Midtown Plaza. Let's see who's calling. It's something I need to actually address. No, somebody from Warrior, Alabama. Usually if it's calling from Alabama somewhere, it's a junk call for some reason. So I've got no use for that. So anyway, if you would go and find this story in the Washington Post and read it and comment on it and follow it along and just see, what you want, what you think about it. I don't know any other way to address all these different concerns that we have facing our community these days. We know they're going to go after us with everything that they have. They have been doing it. They wanted us gone for 70 years. They don't realize the history of who we are. They don't realize we've been here already. We've been through this stuff. We've seen this stuff. We've had, back in the early 1900s, people imprisoned in insane asylums because They lived their lives as a man, and society didn't like it. So they locked them away in an insane asylum and forced this person to wear a dress and tried to strip away their army pension because they had fought alongside the men in the Civil War as a Union soldier. So they had a pension after the war all the way up through the 1900s, like 1910s or something. And then the doctor found out about, in an accident, discovered that the person was actually female. Notified the army stripped them of their benefits, and then the doctor had them institutionalized, forced to wear a dress. His buddies actually got together and persuaded the army to reinstate the pension because this person had served honorably and had done great things beside them, had even escaped a Confederate confinement, the capture and confinement and removal. And so, I mean, we've been here before, folks. People just want to go back down that road, even though we know better now. Back at the time whenever Albert was locked up, there were also people locked up in insane asylums who were left-handed because they couldn't stop being left-handed. And that didn't stop all the way up until like 1960s in some places in this country. That if you wrote with your left hand, you were considered ungodly. You weren't following God's plan, that only on the right hand of God can you sit and do things. So you had to use your right hand. Come on. That's what God said. You know what I have to say about that? Take that damn book and throw it in the trash. You wrote it. You fix it. That's my opinion. I'm tired of it. I'm just tired of it being used as a bludgeon tool, a blunt instrument to try to interfere in this vast creation, in the vast universe of ours that makes us all different. But yeah, they were locking people away because they were left-handed. They were smacking them on the hand because they were left-handed. They were tying their hands to the desk because they were left-handed and forcing them to try to write with their right. That is the original conversion therapy. They thought that we can just force them to write with their right hand. They'll be better, more godly, and less evil people. They considered them evil because they wrote with their darn left hand. We have some stupid things, don't we? All because of some of these idiotic books that have been written, compiled and strengthened and improved upon and modified and edited and corrected to make it sound good for centuries. Find something else to read, folks. Those things are destroying your ability to think clearly. Yeah, it pisses me off. So they locked up Albert because he had lived his life as a man, received a pension as an army soldier, but locked him up when they discovered that he had female anatomy. Took away his pension until his buddies, who had served with him in the Civil War, stood up and said, no, this person deserves that pension. They served with us. They fought with us. They stood beside us. We've been together since then, in the trenches together. No problems. The buddies stood with Albert and got the pension reinstated. And when Albert passed away, sometime around between 1916 and 1922 or 21, somewhere in that period of time, his buddies made sure he had the proper and correct tombstone reflecting exactly who it was. This is the stuff we're seeing today. These people, Ronnie Jackson, a seaman apprentice, I'm not going to call him an admiral anymore. He's undeserving of that label. Seaman apprentice Ronnie Jackson wanted to institutionalize trans people because, you know, a handful of us are idiots. And yeah, there I said it. And we have to call them out. We've got to start calling out the stupidity in our own ranks. We've placated them enough. We've kind of patted them on the back. We've kind of shielded them behind the walls of our echo chambers and protected them and let them just rant and rave and be stupid and all kinds of crap. And we haven't done anything about it to stop it. And now we're paying the piper for that kind of inability to stand up for the difference between right and wrong in our own ranks. So we're going to have to start calling out these people who are doing crazy things. I don't care if they're left-handed. I don't care if they're right-handed. I don't care if they present as male or female or anything in between. That's for them. In this community, we've got to start dealing with the people who are the problem and the troublemakers and who have been coddled for decades. Yes, we've done that. There are those in this community who will sit there today and tell you, don't talk bad about another trans person. Well, I'm telling you, we're wrong when we do that. You're opening up the door for us to be where we are today. You're opening up the door for us to go back down that same path that Albert Cashier faced in the 1910s and 20s. You're opening up that same door if you're a gay person or a lesbian person and you're not standing up fighting with us. If you are not standing with us, that conversion therapy that started out as a slap on the wrist because you were left-handed, or put into an insane asylum because you're left-handed, or put into an insane asylum because you wore men's clothing and you should have been, by social standards, wearing a dress. I got news for you. You're full of shit. You really are. Social mores, to hell with it. Let people live. But at the same time, be aware of what's going on with you. Be aware of the history and where these things are taking us. Alan Turing, gay man, the person who broke the Enigma code that helped us win World War II, institutionalized in the 50s because he was gay. Electroshock therapy because he was gay. Did it fix anything? No, because he was gay. Come on. Trans people are too. Just let us live. We've been around since the dawn of time on this planet. You're not going to eradicate us. We were there with the Assyrians and the Babylonians and the Egyptians and also the Hebrew and the Jewish people and all that. We've been through it all with all of them, and the natives here in the United States, part of these cultures too. As a matter of fact, a native, a true spirit person in today's terminology, was welcomed into the White House, I think Grover Cleveland, as a woman. And this person was two spirits, meaning kind of gender and sexuality all kind of bubbled around together. It was never consistently the same. So she presented as female, even though she was born male. And no one said a word. They didn't even know. Went to Smithsonian and was talking to them. Went to the White House and was talking to them. There was no problem, but they didn't know either. But you know what they would have done if they had known? Sent that person back to the reservation at the very least, or put them institutionalized because, they're unstable and a bad thing with society and they're evil or something like that. Like the left-handed evil people. Just because the vast majority in a culture or society have decided that there's only two sexes doesn't mean they're right. Just because a society has determined that there are only two genders and that the two are closely related, actually the same as, synonymous with sex, doesn't mean they're right. As a matter of fact, they're wrong. So for a gay person to stand and get in my face and tell me that you're being too loud and too bold and you're out here saying things and it goes against the grain of all the science and what society expects of us whenever we're talking about gender as opposed to biological sex, y'all need to be quiet and sit down. You're causing too many ruffles, too many feathers to be ruffled. I've got news for you. We're going to ruffle their feathers, and we have for millennium. Who do you think Philip went out into the day? Now, look, if you adhere to the New Testament and all that, fine. If you adhere to Vedic literature, fine. If you adhere to the Quran, fine. If you adhere to the Torah, fine. Fine, whatever. Doesn't matter to me. If you actually love The Flatland by Edward Abbott, which I do, I find it to be more entertaining than the other stuff because it actually makes sense. Or Plato's Cave, even. But look, if you adhere to all those things, that's perfectly fine with me. I don't care. But the moment you think you have a right to force that on somebody else, and I'm talking to my own community, if you are some of these people out here who think you have a right to force yourself and who you are on somebody else, you're wrong. None of us are, that I know of. I mean, all we're doing is trying to live, right? And give other people the space to live freely too. That's what we are trying to do. Give everyone an opportunity and the space to live as they decide for themselves. It should really fit right in with Joseph Ladapo down there in Florida. You know, the Surgeon General in Florida, who has said that vaccine mandates, we're not going to enforce those things because families ought to be able to decide for themselves. Parents ought to be able to decide for themselves, for their children, whether or not they want to get the vaccines and all that kind of thing, because, you know, we don't want to have the state government standing in the doorway between you and your doctor. Well, it applies to everything there, Joe, not just vaccines. Even though I happen to think you're wrong on the vaccine front, because you're actually engaging in things that can impact the entire society and have a deadly effect if not addressed. There are certain things that you just have to do as a society that you don't do as an individual. Like if you're a trans person, I mean, being trans is not contagious. You cannot get gender dysphoria by rubbing shoulders with someone who's gender dysphoric. You can get an illness or a disease from someone who is not vaccinated and is carrying it, and they bring it to you. If you're not vaccinated, then that's a totally different thing. Don't you think a different set of rules probably ought to apply in a case like that? If you're going to school and you're taking it into the schools, and you can affect other kids in that school or other people within your social clubs or whatever it is you're doing, if it's contagious, you have a responsibility to the broader society to deal with that. But gender dysphoria is not one of those things. You are not going to catch it. We wouldn't even want you to have it. You aren't capable of handling it. Anyway, these are a lot of the rambling thoughts that I had on the way back up here, going down there and up here. And there was one other thing I just wanted to talk about really quickly before I close out the show for the noontime show, which I started a little bit late. But another thing I wanted to talk about was this Chloe Cole, a detransitioner. There are other detransitioners out there. Of course there are, you know, naturally there would be. There's all kinds of regret for all kinds of reasons. And most of it there are more people who regret knee surgery than who regret being transgender. And I actually want to change back to something or continue their journey. Their journey hasn't stopped. It's still growing and changing. And it's an evolving thing for most people. But here's what I have to say about the detransitioners who are being used as a means to target all trans people in the country. Let's say this is the hypothetical. This is the hypothetical I want you to think about. All right, so a year and a half ago, I had shoulder surgery here. And about 5 years ago, I had shoulder surgery over here. Both hurt. This one hurts more. There's actually, according to the doctor, there's there's muscular atrophy in parts of this right around this bone in here, where I had torn rotator cuff surgery and the rotator cuff was repaired and that kind of stuff. And it still hurts more than it should. And it's probably because I use it a lot too, though. I'm in a house where I have to pick up people and move things around a lot. So it's not going to, probably not going to heal the way it ought to heal. I grant that to you. No doubt about it. And this past week has been a real test on this, okay, because I've had to pick up Mom off the floor several times the past couple of weeks. And no one else in the house can do that. So I know that causes a problem on my shoulder. But let me tell you something. What if I went to my doctors and I said, and I went to the legislature, I went to the state house and to the federal government, and I said that we need to pass a law that bans these procedures on shoulders because look what it did to me. My shoulder is still not well. I mean, I got all kinds of shots. It must have been the shots. Or must have been the surgery. There's something wrong with that. We need to know more before we allow people to pursue this any further. We got to do more studies. Let's halt all procedures that have to do with rotator cuff repairs. Halt them now so that we can have some time to actually study. No, and by the way, I also want the federal government to stop using the term torn rotator cuff surgery, because that's got to be some kind of woke terminology or something. We just want to get away from those words. We don't want you to be able, and any research that's being currently conducted in this field, let's stop it, because we don't trust the scientists to do what they do. So let's go ahead and pass some laws that ban rotator cuff repairs because Cassandra got hurt. Do you know how stupid that sounds? Do you? Well, that's what this is with Chloe Cole. To those of us who are trans, who have been through these things, and we don't wish ill for her at all. We wish her a happy, successful future, that she achieves what she wants for herself. But for her to go around saying, and others, this Walt Air person out there in California and a bunch of others out there, like I said before, the numbers are far smaller for regret for trans procedures than there are people who have knee surgeries, and they regret that more at a higher rate. Yeah, they do. Check it out. So, I mean, who are these people to think that their experience should dictate to the entire country procedures that we know work for most of the people who do it? So, who wants to join my little bandwagon of banning rotator cuff research and surgeries? Come on, everybody. Come on, we got to go pass some laws. We got to get these people all to stand together and ban these things until we know more about it. We don't know enough right now. We got to stop this before more people get hurt, like me. You know, I mean, I'm representative of the whole community, right? So I know what I'm talking about here, right? Come on, my shoulder hurts, folks. Come on. Oh no, we got to stop this stuff. It hurts so bad. Chloe, your experience, I'm sorry it was bad for you. I'm sorry that Walt Air had a bad experience too. I sit beside Walt one day, and I watched another Finn eviscerate him down at the Alabama State House. Ooh, that was fun. But anyway, so no, you can't extrapolate what you're doing to the entire community. But this is what's happening. The right has picked up on this torn rotator cuff stuff and decided to make it a big deal. And they're making sure that the Heritage Foundation is all on board on banning rotator cuff repair surgeries, because the science is not there, and it goes against our God-given right to live freely in this land of ours and to impose our will on others as we see fit. Yep. Who's with me? Y'all have a good one. I'll come back tonight sometime whenever, 6 p.m. I'm trying to recover and rest and try to take care of stuff around the house too. So y'all have a great afternoon. Thank you for watching.